Hey, what's up everyone? I just wanted to make a quick video about the new PnP PowerShell module version 2.1 because we've made a couple of changes, and the most important one is that we do not support PowerShell 5 anymore, nor the ISC, because Windows PowerShell is behind the scene. So the thing we're going to do in this video is installing the new module in PowerShell 7 and PowerShell 5, so we can see the impact, what you can do, what you cannot do, if it's working or not. So let's do it. So I am currently on the Windows machine because this is where the change happens. If you're using Windows PowerShell, you are on Windows. If you're using macOS or Linux, then you are using PowerShell 7 for a long time. So what we're going to do here is that I've just opened the terminal and I have a PowerShell 7 tab and a PowerShell 5 tab. So if I do a PS version table, you can see the black background is PowerShell 7. And if I do the same here, I have Windows PowerShell, PowerShell 5. And just to prove that I do not have any PnP PowerShell module installed, we are going to run the get module PnP PowerShell and list available. And as you can see, I do not have any PnP PowerShell module installed. So let's start with PowerShell 7. If I want to install the module, at this point, I'm simply going to do install module PnP PowerShell, and then I'm going to force it just not to be prompt for anything. If I run a get module PnP PowerShell list available, I would have the latest, which is 2.1.1. And this is the major version. If you had a nightly release, then you would have 2.1.10, for example. Now, if I try to connect to my tenant, I seem to have no problem. If I do, so the new module, PnP PowerShell 2.1 and above, will work with PowerShell 7.2 and above as well. No problem on this side. So now let's go over to PowerShell 5. And we're going to do the exact same thing. So install module. So at this point, if I just run this, it's going to install the very latest. And the very latest, we've seen that this is the 2.1.1. So it might happen that you don't pay attention on which shell you are, and you think you're on PowerShell 7, but actually you're on PowerShell 5, but you still run that command. So let's do this. Now, the module has been installed. So if we go back to get module, now you can see that I'm on PowerShell 5 and I have the latest 2.1.1. Now let's do as if we were on PowerShell 7 and we do a connect. And now I'm trying to press tab on the keyboard, but it's actually not completing. So that should be your first tip that you are on PowerShell 5. But let's continue. So I'm going to type everything manually. And I'm going to press enter. So now we have an issue here because indeed the Connect PnP Online has been found in the module, but it is not working. And it says you can run the import module. So let's try to do this. And run it. And it's also not working at this point. So this would be the kind of errors that you would get if you're trying to use the new PnP PowerShell version 2 on PowerShell 5. It is simply not going to work. What we need to do instead is the version 1.12.0 is the one with the support for PowerShell 5 and is the one that it's going to work. So what we need to do here is we need to uninstall the version 2 and install the version 1 specifically. So let's just do this. And just for the sake of this video, what I'm going to do, I am just going to close the tab for PowerShell 5, and I'm going to remove the files directly in here. So I'm in Program Files and Windows PowerShell, so PowerShell 5, and I'm going to remove this module. I know there's no dependencies with this module, so I can safely do this. And now if I go again into a Windows PowerShell session, get module, now I have nothing. But if we go into the documentation, we can see that we've added a section for the new PnP PowerShell version 2. And that says that this version will not support PowerShell 5 or the IC anymore. And we give you the command to install the version that is still compatible with PowerShell 5. So if I just copy that and run it, let's see the modules that we have. And now we have version 1.12.0, which again is the major version. And I'm going to try to connect. And this time I don't seem to have any issue. And if I do a get PnP tenant site like I was doing earlier, then this time it is working. So remember, the bottom line is that if you want to use the latest version, version 2.1 and above, then you need to use PowerShell 7.2 and later. And if you are still using PowerShell 5 or the ISE, in that case, when you install the module, you need to specifically say that you want to use the version 1.12.